movement is constant. Everything around us is moving. The earth revolves around the sun. The cells in our body are in constant motion. There is a constant energy flow around us. Movement is the intrinsic nature of any organism. I wonder what would happen if this movement stopped. Hello, everybody. My name is Vinu George, and I'm a physiotherapist. I would like to share with all of you a personal story. In 2017, my mother suffered a stroke. It affected her left side. I was shaken. I didn't know what to do. I kept asking, will my mother be able to walk again? I was so worried that this traumatic experience would make her depressed and she would not be even motivated to move. But I'm proud to say that she proved me wrong. She rose up from her situation and she worked hard with the help of a physiotherapist back home in India to regain her mobility and strength. She now goes to the gym 5 times a week, and she tells me that she never realized the importance of regular exercise, and she feels confident in her activities now. She works every day, but she goes to the gym after work. That is my mother at 60, lifting 40 kilograms of weight. Pain can be highly disabling. When I think of pain, what comes to my mind is the feeling of being stuck, restricting us from doing the things we like, reducing the quality of our life, a state of immobility. Our body is meant to move. Movement is essential for good health. And when movement is restricted, there is a stagnation of energy flow, circulation, and normal mechanics in the affected area, and we establish improper communication to the brain. The common belief is that it is movement that causes pain after an injury, but it is often immobility that can lead to pain. Let us think of our actions when we experience pain. Our usual response is to limit movement because we tend to think that moving the affected part can harm the tissues and lead to re-injury. Well, this can be true in some cases during the initial phases of an injury, but it is counterintuitive during the later stages. I invite you all, therefore, to reimagine pain as immobility. If you can connect pain and immobility, it would be instinctual for us to break from it and get moving again. Pain is a complex process that occurs as a protective output of the central nervous system when tissues are perceived to be in danger. Note here that it is the perception of threat and not the actual threat that produces pain. Now, this threat evaluation can be flawed by a variety of different factors, such as inaccurate information, previous experiences, cultural beliefs, life stressors, work pressures, and sometimes Dr. Google. And when the brain perceives a threat, a variety of local and segmental changes occur. Inflammatory responses, rapid changes in blood flow, rapid excitability of nociceptors, and then the threat is transmitted as electrical activity to the higher centers of the brain where pain is processed, and then voluntary and postural activity occurs, and we become conscious of the pain. Note that all the changes that took place was not at a level of consciousness, and therefore it is not within our conscious control or direct control. And there's often a misconception that pain science implies that pain is all in your head or pain is in your mind. No, that's not true. I'm not talking about your mind, but the actual pain processes that occurs within the brain. Our brain has a map of our body which it uses to plan and execute movement. And this is called the homunculus. It is literally like a GPS system in our brain. Isn't that fascinating? So as you can see, the more sensitive areas like your hands, lips, tongue, mouth have a large representation within the brain, and the less sensitive areas like your back, shoulder, knee have a smaller representation. With persistent pain, this map within the primary sensory motor cortex can get distorted and become more sensitive. For example, if you experience persistent low back pain, then the low back representation within that map can become enlarged, and therefore even mild sensations or mild movements in your low back can become painful. Now, what we need to do here is to help desensitize the area and help reestablish normal connectivity. And this can be achieved by gradual exposure to the movements that cause you pain. And this is what my mother did in her recovery process to help her get back to her normal activities. Now, gradual exposure is done to reestablish safety, because when safety is reestablished, then the threat reduces and therefore pain reduces. Now, gradual exposure can be different for different people. For example, an athlete can increase his movements fairly quickly and in increments to increase his activities and return to his sports, whereas another person who has suffered chronic pain for a very long time will have to do this in a much slower manner. And this requires patience and persistence. It's like we have to regain the trust of our brain so that it can let go of its protective mechanism. Start with small movements and help your brain feel safe with it. And then you can progress further by increasing movements, repetitions, intensity, and so on. I would like to now take you through some interesting and eye-opening imaging studies. As you can see in the first picture, by the way, these are common lumbar MRI findings in pain-free individuals. Note here, it's pain-free individuals. So the first one, you can see 50 to 60% of pain-free subjects have disc bulges. 30% of pain-free subjects show herniated discs. 90% of pain-free subjects show degenerative disc disease. And the last one is a grade 4 spondylolisthesis, which is slippage of one vertebrae on top of the other. And a grade 4 means it's severe and requires surgery, but the person has no pain and no disability. There was another study done in the cervical spine or the neck with 1,200 pain-free subjects, and the study showed that an average of 87.6% had a bulging disc. There are similar studies done with regards to meniscal tears in the knee, rotator cuff tears in the shoulder, calcium deposits in the shoulder, and other abnormal pathology in pain-free individuals. What these studies help us understand is that many of the changes that you would see on imaging are normal age-related changes or wrinkles on the inside. These studies also give us the hope that we too can eventually get out of pain, restore our quality of life, despite having jarring imaging findings. Now that you know these changes, remember, pain is immobility, healing is movement. I also wish to share with you some dangers of inactivity. Let's take an example of a body part that's been immobilized by a cast. Just a few weeks of immobilization leads to joint stiffness and pain. Or let's take squatting. It's a great exercise. But what if I have to stay in a squatted position for a few hours? That'll be awful. Or think of a time when you had to travel in that dreaded middle seat of a plane squished between two people. Our body is meant to move, and let's not inhibit it. There is a strong positive correlation between increased physical movements and increase in mental health well-being. Inactivity or disuse leads to deconditioning. Even short periods of bed rest is sufficient to cause decrease in muscle mass and strength by 15% per week of disuse and 5.5% per day of bed rest. And regarding sitting, increased amounts of sitting time is strongly associated with chronic disease, abnormal glucose metabolism, diabetes, and cardiovascular diseases. And even if you meet the minimum physical activity guidelines, it's been reported that every 1 hour of sitting time increased the prevalence of metabolic syndrome in women by 26%. That's pretty high. My mother believed in the healing potential of movement and exercise. My mother's recovery inspired me to spread the word of movement as healing. Let us make a commitment to ourselves to lead a healthy lifestyle that consists of movement and exercise. Now, if you are all with me in this journey, I invite you all to stand up so that we can do an exercise together. So I would like you all to place your hands on your hips and stand at ease. Okay, now just let's move from side to side. Great, like a little swaying motion. But the key here is that I want you to start activating your core. So imagine pulling in your belly button towards your spine. Feel the connection, feel your abdominal muscles working, feel your back working. Use that force to move from side to side. Great, you're all looking wonderful. And thank you, by the way, for the standing ovation. That's great. Remember, pain is immobility. Healing is movement. Thank you.